Hey, this is Notser, and this is the Tier 6 U.S. carrier Independence. It has 3 squadrons with 6 aircraft each, 1 fighter, 1 torpedo, 1 bomber, 40 AA guns, a top speed of 32 knots, total health 36,700. For my modules, increase gun effectiveness, increase fighter survivability, reduce flood and fire chance, and for my commander, basic survivability, faster torpedo rearm, dogfighting expert, and aircraft servicing expert. We are on the map Fault Line. I spawned in, I'm just trying to get my fighters up. This is with the new patch, 0.4.1. And right off the bat, I'm a Tier 6 going up against a Tier 6. We have a Tier 5 going up against a Tier 5. This is with at least 8 aircraft carriers in the queue. So in an ideal scenario, everything appears to be level and equal, which is fantastic. I think more people will be interested in playing the carrier when they're not getting obliterated by a carrier that's 2 or 3 tiers higher. I just pressed Alt and you saw the manual drop. They added a manual attack for fighters. It will sweep an area and it will devastate the enemy if you catch them. It does not provide a slow on a target, so you can't prevent them from getting away or dodging it, but it's fantastic for grouped up enemy fighters, torpedo bombers, and dive bombers. And we see an enemy destroyer right off the bat. We want to make his day terrible. We're going to use both our bombs and our torpedoes with our fighters providing support. And you can see it looks like he's not going to be able to maneuver out of this one. Get him! Don't let him run! And we take out the enemy destroyer. We get first blood, devastating strike, and we stop him from capturing B. Our fighters, on the other hand, have just wiped out the enemy fighters, and he's sending in an attack squadron. Initially, I was like, I need to intercept. Then I was like, okay, he wants to go for me. So I'm just going to send my fighters to my ship, and then I'm going to engage the enemy. A couple other things they appear to have changed. I believe they have nerfed the default range on aircraft carriers with their AA. My Independence went from 5 kilometers as its maximum range on AA to 3.5 kilometers. This is default. I am considering having a AA range increase module installed instead of fighter survivability, since the fighter survivability only affects one of my 3 types of squads. And we beat him to where he wants to go. He's trying to get us. You notice I'm trying to use Shift Q onto the enemy fighters, and I just can't do that. They have taken that capability out. Fighters can no longer Shift Q to enemy squadrons and try and kill them one by one. They have to input the actual action. So they're really trying to cut down on the automatic win effect of a lot of these. They don't want just raw stats deciding it. It appears they want to make it more of a brawl in the air. I have yet to have a situation where I needed to use the manual fighter attack. These are all isolated squadrons, and you still want to use your single attack strategy on isolated squadrons. But overall, it feels pretty good. In this particular game, it's very fun. It's a very rewarding game, and I hope you all enjoy it. So, we reservice our torpedo bombers. We're about to get our dive bombers up. We're trying to take out any stragglers that are trying to retreat. We're not going to catch up with the dive bombers. We want to rearm. I think it's a great strategy to service your fighters to get them back to full ammo capacity to take on the next attack by the enemy. So that's exactly what I do. Whenever I have a chance, maybe their attack is done, I will try and bring it back if the carrier is close, and I'll try and rearm so they're ready to go when the next attack comes. This is another way I think they want to slow down the carrier gameplay. They don't want it to be so much of a bombarding action where you just annihilate an enemy in one single run. We obviously want to avoid cruisers because cruisers are our hard counter. And there's another lovely hard counter that everyone's going to run into. Enemy destroyers now can have defensive fire equipped with a special hull past Tier 6. Now, They can't really kill your fighters, but they can put that debuff on for accuracy. And I've run into a lot of US destroyers in particular that love to do this. So it's going to be interesting. Perhaps a destroyer will be more inclined to stay with a battleship, for instance, to provide that defensive fire, since the battleship has the AA capable of taking out the fighters. He just lacked the ability to use defensive fire. Could you imagine if a battleship could use defensive fire? They would be so broken, it would not even be a contest. Their AA is already fantastic. And we just kind of sneak by that fighter squadron. He apparently is not paying attention, I don't know what, but we're going to send our fighters to attack him anyway. Now, I still feel like US fighters are better than Japanese fighters in a 1v1 scenario. The Japanese fighters have the advantage that they can have more fighters overall, and they can take advantage of the manual attack path, which basically takes out 2 to 3 fighters per 50% of your ammo capacity. Now, you can dodge out of this quite easily if you see it coming, but it's a pretty cool mechanic. I really like all of the carrier changes they've made to the game. I think carriers are going to be more interesting just to play in general, and I think they're going to be a slower ship towards the meta, so you're not just annihilating 6, 7, 8 ships all by yourself without any risk to your ship whatsoever. I think you're really going to be trying to brawl with other carriers. And hopefully they don't ever allow a single carrier to get into a game, because it's really dull, in my opinion, even before this patch, to be by yourself. It's just not fun. You'll be in a game with no air opposition, just running havoc all over, even just scouting destroyers and having no opposition just felt broken. It's just not, it's not good design. It really allows for a lot of power creep for a team that has access to a carrier against a team that does not. I don't think there's a ship in the game that is equal to the power that a carrier provides to their team. And I'm very happy with the initial balance that I see in matchmaking. Now, I've heard when there's a lot less carriers, so like high tier carriers, the balance is still pretty terrible. But as people start getting up in tiers, they'll start having every ship. There'll be more people in the system. It should feel better, hopefully. Now, we got a nice bomb. He clearly didn't have defensive fire up, and we were able to set him on fire. He probably had to use damage control to stop it. And we're going to try and torpedo this guy before he can get in range. He clearly knows we exist in this region. Now we try and do manual drop. We probably dropped it a little bit too far. We didn't lead the target as much as we should have. And we're going to get only one torpedo makes contact with the Cleveland, and he survives. We did cause flooding. A friendly bomber was able to land a bomb on it, and it looks like he's going to die to fires and flooding, which he does. Fantastic. We do lose a friendly right next to him, but the 2 carriers are alive, and selfishly I'm very happy about that. Unfortunately for my team, we lost a cruiser that we probably could have kept up. I see that the Isokaze has 22 hit points. Another case of holes in every part of the ship. You got your crewmen putting their fingers in them. It's just chaos. The ship's flooding. I don't know how it survived. Duct tape, maybe. And I see that the friendly destroyer actually spots the 2 enemy aircraft carriers. Now, at the beginning of the game, you're probably supposed to go after aircraft carriers every single time, but man, do I find it is so challenging to break through the AA defenses at the beginning of the game. Usually I take a lot of losses, and it's just frustrating. I would much rather take out like that destroyer, who is actively capturing a point and providing spotting intel, but carriers are really the prize, and I just need to get better at the game. And friendlies take out a couple more ships. We're really boxing them in over in the southwest side of the map. Obviously, I'm going to go after this battleship. He commands the center of the map, and he's putting pressure on myself and the friendly aircraft carrier. So we got a full health dive bombing crew going in to drop on this enemy battleship. And they do 2 fires, minimal damage overall, and he puts out the fires. I don't blame him. 2 fires is my limit. We're sending our fighters. I'm going to try and intercept any enemy torpedo or dive bombers trying to return to their aircraft carrier. There's not a lot of situations where I've been able to use the manual drop, and I just am trying to show you guys a scenario where it makes sense. 2 squadrons, it does make sense, and ideally you would follow their path, but we go after one at a time. At this point, I hadn't really discovered that they took out the queuing. I just thought it was bugged. You could see I'm trying to queue up fighters to engage. And I read the patch notes right after this game, and I'm like, what the hell? They took that out. But obviously we switch. We go up against the enemy fighter squadron. We're finding a New York in a vulnerable position, I would say. He's a lot slower, so we don't need to lead quite as much against the New York as the Cleveland. And we're able to do massive damage, and he dies to flooding. Fantastic. And this is another aspect of taking out queuing. You really need to pay attention to your fighters, or they're going to be sitting idle a lot of times. And I see, oh man, friendly battleship is barely alive. We're going to try and stop the torpedoes or make them less accurate. And we're able to make them less accurate. But one torpedo is going directly for the friendly battleship. No! He was so close. He was so close. We've rearmed our bombers. Our torpedo are rearming, but our dive are ready. And we're going to try and send them out and try and take out the enemy aircraft carriers. I don't believe my ally aircraft carrier has anything left. I don't blame him. He was a tier 5. 1 tier 6, 1 tier 5 versus 1 tier 6, 1 tier 5. Much better. It felt good. Hopefully, this is the general direction they want to go with aircraft carriers. And now we can just talk about how a Japanese aircraft carrier is better than a US carrier and vice versa. We fully rearmed our torpedo bombers and we're ready to go. Our dive bombers will be probably 20 to 30 seconds ahead of the torpedo bombers. So in an ideal scenario, we would set fire to the target. They would not have damage control available. If they did, they would use it on the fire, and then our torpedo bombers would swoop in, cause flooding, and ultimately kill the enemy ship. We do have an enemy cruiser, though, that is in close proximity to the aircraft carriers of the enemy. So we need to be very careful of defensive fire. That will just ruin our day. And we start our attack run. All wings have reported in. And he has yet to use defensive fire. Interesting. And I don't know where my dive bombers went. And his enemy fighters engage. Inaccurate, but we still land a bomb and we cause a fire. That's pretty amazing. But he is not the real prize. The real prize is this aircraft carrier. It's a Japanese, based on the deck color. So, we're going to try and get in as close as we can. You can see that really, I feel like the AA have been nerfed in range. I didn't really start taking a lot of fire until I got real close to this guy. And usually, prior to this, it really felt like aircraft carriers were really scary to fly around for an extended period of time. And we take out the enemy aircraft carrier. We get a devastating strike. It's fantastic, obviously. The Wyoming is going up against the enemy cruiser. And it looks like they want to ram each other. That's initially what I thought. His aircraft respond. But you can see that is me attempting to shift. You can see the plus sign. The plus sign indicates that I want to add an action, and I just can't. There's no way to possibly add an action that involves attacking an aircraft. You have to actually be there to watch it switch and command it to switch, or you're not going to be as efficient as you were in the previous patch. So we've got a couple aircraft. We could use manual, but they're kind of circling erratically. You really only want to use your manual attack with your fighter when you're fighting multiple squadrons in the same area. You use up a lot of ammunition to do this, and it is easily dodgeable if you are paying attention to your squadron. If you're not looking at it, obviously it's going to be hard to dodge out of the way, but you can easily read the fighter group setting up for the attack. You can kind of see they've really enhanced the animation of the engagements. They've made them more descriptive at this obviously long range. And you can see I successfully set up my attack path, but he moved out of the way, and I couldn't stop it until it completed that animation. So it's a real risk versus reward. Now, the game ended. We did awesome. It felt good. 3 kills, base XP of 2508, couple devastating strikes, clear sky, felt good to wipe out the enemy aircraft. Initial impression of carriers after the new patch, awesome. Let's continue this. We had something like 95,000 points of damage between all the sources. I hope you have a great day, and I'll catch you next time.